Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. Before we really do get started, can I just check whether everyone can see or hear me? So you should have a chat panel down on the bottom right of your screen somewhere, I think. Cool. Already got feedback. Thank you very much. So the webinar today is going to be on a topic called the Infigo Form Builder, which is a bit of functionality that's not yet available inside Infigo. I'm just going to be giving you more of a sneak peek of its potential capabilities today, with a bit of information on when it might be released and that kind of thing. As always, if you have any questions as we are going through the webinar today, you can put the questions in the chat panel down on the bottom right of your screen, assuming your page layout is the same as mine. Can't promise I can answer all of them within the session, but I will take the questions away and I will ask the developers of this if there's any questions I can't answer. So I'm sharing my screen here, which is a web page I've put together to complement this particular webinar. I'm going to provide that with a link as a link to you guys in the chat as well, just so you can follow along with it if you want to. It will also give you the ability to access a few example products so you can see what kind of thing the form builder is capable of doing. All right, so it's important for me to tell as well that when I'm demonstrating what the form builder can do here, I am demonstrating on very simple products, like really simple products. I don't want to sort of really overdo it with the styling and all that kind of thing. I want to keep it nice and simple so you can see the core functionality of this particular piece of software. Just bear in mind that when you start using this and building your own products, you can make it much, much prettier than my attempts at quickly building a couple of products. Also worth noting that I won't be going through every feature, so additional features do exist or are in development, which will not be demonstrated during the webinar. So I will be going and switching onto products quite a lot, but I'll be using this page as reference as well. So let's start off with what is the Infigo Form Builder. So this is a bit of functionality, which I said is going to come out relatively soon. And what it does is gives you the ability to design user-facing forms from within MegaEdit. And that's done completely within MegaEdit, so no need to utilize Inventive if you don't want to go that way. And it's done using a new, very minimalist user interface, which I'll show you a bit later on. So in a nutshell, and hopefully it's big enough on the screen there for you to see it, over on the left-hand side, so where you would normally configure parts of your MegaEdit product, you'll have a new tab, which allows you to configure your forms using a really simple user interface. And the end result is what we see over on the right-hand side here. So this is the user-facing form, which is very sleek and very streamlined customer experience. Now, the primary thing of this is it simplifies the process of configuring variable product templates in MegaEdit, and it vastly reduces the time to produce those variable product templates. And I can say that from playing around with this, that is in fact the case. And as well, it does introduce that capability to create those customer-facing forms within MegaEdit itself. So many of you will be aware that we have been able to do that in Invent previously. This is now just bringing it inside development inside MegaEdit. It also has a lot of extensive capabilities for more advanced users. So I'm going to split this webinar into kind of two parts. One part is going to be focusing on the basic fundamentals, which is just using the user interface. So this kind of small picture you can see on the left-hand side. And then I'm going to focus more on some of the capabilities of the more advanced configuration options of this functionality, which does involve a little bit of scripting, but we're going to provide you with the guidance and all that thing you need. And it's not as scary as it looks for non-developers. I do promise that. So before I jump into some products, just a couple of FAQs in association with this, as I suspect these problems or these questions rather will come up during the course of the webinar. So first thing, when will the Infigo Form Builder be released? There's no official release date announced yet. I can probably say it's within the next few months or so. There's a lot of development ongoing with it. There's a lot of work on a lot of different areas of it, but we are hoping to get this out to you very soon. But as I say, there is no fixed release date as of yet. This is just to introduce you to the concept. Has the Infigo Form Builder been renamed? An unusual question, but one that will probably come up in the future. For those that have come across this before, you may know it as the refactored Form Builder. I'm calling it the Infigo form builder for now. At the end of the day, we've not settled on a final name for this. So just so you're aware, when you do eventually see content and stuff being churned out for this in the future, it may be under a slightly different name. And if the name does change, we'll share that via the Infigo Academy. Will we provide training material? Of course we will. Content is currently being created so that it's all ready for when release takes place, so that you'll have a step-by-step guide as to how to generate and utilize different bits of this functionality. Now, if you've already done product build projects with our front-end team, you may already have access to a version of this Infigo form builder or refactored form builder. And you may have seen it a little bit, you may have had it demoed, but not know how to fully utilize it. If you are one of those people, and you do want to see some of the training material in advance, please get in touch and I may be able to provide that to you on a case-by-case basis. But for the vast majority, especially those who've not done project work with our front-end team, will unfortunately have to wait until the release date. Will we provide script config examples? Now, as I mentioned a minute ago, there is, if you want to access some of the more advanced features, you do need to get into sort of writing some JSON script, essentially. But as I said, I promise you, it's not as scary as it looks for non-developers, of which I am one. I'm not a developer. And we will provide you with guidance as to how to format things, which bits to copy and paste, which bits to replace. So it should be nice and straightforward for you. And we will provide examples. There's some in this page, and we'll provide more detailed things upon release as well. What kind of experience do you need to use the Infigo form builder? So all I would say that you need, is some basic experience really with Mega Edit. So the more the better. And if you have Invent experience, you'll have some kind of context around it as well, I suppose. But really, all that you're probably going to need is the Mega Edit crash course. So that's a 40-minute tutorial that we've got, which gives you the fundamentals of Mega Edit. If you have no Mega Edit experience at all at the moment, that crash course is probably enough to get you up to speed with enough to start using the Infigo form builder. And if you go on the link that I provided to you, there is a link there directly to that crash course. And then probably what I think is the most important question, how does the Infigo form builder differ from Invent? So it does contain a lot of similarities to our plugin for Adobe InDesign. I'd say the primary difference, and this is just my take on it from using them both, the primary difference is that the Infigo form builder is fully contained within Mega Edit, so you no need to install separate third-party plugins. There's no jumping back and forth between software and that kind of thing. But there are also a number of other differences in the offerings. So this is very generally speaking, if you're looking for a sort of straightforward product template that's very easy to configure and use, then you've probably got a choice of either Invent or the Infigo form builder. Both are viable options. It's kind of down to personal choice. For those that are looking to take their product builds to the next level in terms of configuration capabilities and end user experience at the end of the day, then you might want to consider, once it's available, using the Infigo form builder as your more effective tool. So the Infigo form builder contains numerous extended capabilities in various different areas over the Invent plugin. However, as I've mentioned, the caveat to that is you do have to be just a little bit comfortable modifying script config. All right, let me zoom out a little bit, give us a bit more space. So one of the major differences, I'd say, for Invent, and this is a good way to start the process today, is that the form builder gives you the ability to design or provide different modes to your customers. Now, what I mean by this is you can tailor the experience that they have based on what you perceive them to require. There's a few different things we can utilize. These four are the ones we'll provide in the first iteration. So we've got a few examples. We've got form, which is where you can custom generate a load of forms that customers just fill in. We've got create mode, where you can give them the capability to add text fields and image fields to their canvas, but it's in a controlled manner. You've got upload. So this is where you can actually just give them a space to upload their artwork into Mega Edit product. And we've got guided. So this is one where you can actually create a step-by-step experience. Unfortunately, I can't demonstrate this one to you today, which is very unfortunate, but I'll try and give you an understanding of what it is. So to look at a few of those, we'll start off with form modes, and I've got a few other tabs open here just to demonstrate those. I've opened these products as a customer would see them. So this is the end user experience, no admin capabilities in this particular configuration. So what you can see in the form mode over on the right-hand side, we can very easily configure this form, which allows us to change various elements of our Mega Edit product. This is ranging from things like the layouts and the backgrounds, imagery, and then we can get it so that we input text, it generates QR codes, it automatically formats text, all this good stuff, and it's all done from within the form on the right-hand side. You have still got capabilities to allow the customer to interact with the actual canvas and the elements on the canvas if you want to, but I'd say in most scenarios, when people are utilizing this, they just want people to interact with the form, and that's what the form mode does. Now, the form mode is the default one, so it's what I'll be using for the vast majority of the explanation in this webinar, as it kind of covers most of the capabilities. The next example product, and I say again, it's a very basic example product, is the create mode. So this is where you empower the customer to add their own elements and modify their own fields on the actual canvas itself. Doesn't mean you have to give them a blank canvas. As I've tried to demonstrate very simply here, you can put permanent elements on there, which they have to adhere to, they have to keep. However, they, as the customer, then have the ability to input new frames, move it around, and then they have some customization options on that frame as well. Who should we put on? Let's put Ben. That's the create mode. And then we have the upload mode. So this is probably the simplest. It's just where you have a field on your canvas. You give people the ability to upload the image. Again, you can still have permanent elements on there if you need to do so. But all they're essentially doing is uploading an image to that field. Now, we've also got the capabilities within here as well to, and I'll try and demonstrate this a bit later on, is you can change the canvas and keep the frames relative to the canvas. So like fit to bleed or fit to page or something like that. You can do it so that even if you change the canvas, it will maintain those relationships. And that's one of these good things of the upload mode. It is present on the other modes as well, but it's very good to use on the upload mode. So for example, if I go ahead and change my canvas, I've configured it so that that image will follow suit. Okay, so in terms of, are there any checks that happen when items are uploaded for use? Now, I'll take that question away to the developers in terms of whether there's any advanced checks, but it does still adhere to the Mega Edit. It is essentially still Mega Edit, so it still will use Mega Edit's capabilities. So in terms of things like resolution of the image, you'll have in your product settings what the resolution is required to be, and it will still give you a warning, as you can see here, for example, if that resolution isn't met. But in terms of if there's any more advanced, I don't think so, but I will take that question away. Okay, and then the final mode that I can't demonstrate to you because it's guided mode. It's a work in progress, so it can't be fully shown. What it does is enables the ability to provide your end users with a kind of step-by-step experience when ordering and customizing their products. And what it does, so you can see in my example here, I've just got these various steps. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. What they will experience is when they open the product, it will go immediately into step 1, which may be to fill in and customize a text field. They'll then get a next button, which goes to step 2. they'll do whatever's on there. Next step, go to step 3. So it's guided through the process, means that they have to fill in, it's a simple user experience, and it means that all the required information is filled in as well, because they have to go through all the steps before they can add to basket. Right. So let's talk about how we actually utilize the form builder. Now, as I mentioned, I want to start off with the fundamentals. So the first example will just be to use the user interface capabilities. Really simple to grasp, really simple to use. If you are logged into the web page, then there is a couple of product links that you can get to at the top. You will be only able to view them as the end user, so you won't be able to see the admin side of things based on what I've configured, but it will give you an understanding, hopefully, of what they do. I've also got a link to the webinar live product demo. So as I'm updating things here, hopefully you'll see the product update as well if you're using that link. You have to refresh it to see that. So starting off with setting up a product in the Infigo form builder. Now, the reason I've included this is just to drill home the fact that it is still, in essence, a mega edit product. So you are still selecting canvases and stops and output types and resources. You are still doing all that. The only change is that you need to activate a specific script in order to get this functionality to work. And that's just as simple as checking a box. So there's going to be a lot of switching between windows here, so do bear with me. Let's go with this one. So really, really easy to do. So once you've created a mega edit product in the usual way, you can go to webinar work, go to its mega edit settings, and then exactly the same as you would do originally on a normal mega edit product, select canvases, stocks, clip art categories, masks. On the canvas, you can do background categories, exactly the same way as mega edit. Just select all those and make sure you save them. The only difference is you need to go to the script section. And then currently that's labeled, you won't have it in your platform at the moment, most likely, but currently it's named the refactored form builder or form builder refactor. As I mentioned, that name may change. But all you're doing is enabling the relevant script and clicking save. And as soon as you do that, that capability is enabled. Okay. So with that in play, we can then actually start to modify our product and start to configure our product. So I've got one loaded up already, this one here. And this is a product, obviously, that's had some work done to it prior, but all I've done is added some static text and static image fields to it. There's no special setup or configuration done here at all. It's just a basic thing where I've positioned some frames and done some formatting. Now, when we've got this active, the form builder script, you'll notice on your configuration screen over on the left-hand side, we've got this new custom tab over at the top of the screen. And all of the fields, and this is page dependent. So if I go to page 1, for example, where there's far fewer fields, you'll see there's a few less entries in here. All of the fields, the relevant fields that are on the page, will be shown in that list, so that custom tab list. So we'll start off with this page to keep it nice and simple. All you're doing, and it kind of groups everything into one go. So let's say, for example, I want to do something with this logo. I need to identify which one is the logo, so I can just click on the icon on the left, and that will highlight the relevant field. Enter a name. Specify whereabouts on what order of the form you want it to appear. So there's the number here. The lower the number, the higher up the form it will eventually appear. And then you've got some advanced configuration settings at the end here, just using this little gear icon. Now, I'm going through this one in kind of detail, but they're all pretty much identical. So the configuration is more or less the same. Slight differences between image and text, of course, but the methodology is the same. So I've given it a name, a position. We've then got a series of toggles here, which is an easy way to control the interactivity. So what the end user can do with that particular field. So what this means, if they're all selected by default, the end user will be able to do quite a lot with that field. They'll be able to move things around, delete things. It might not be printed, various things. However, if we want to make it so the customer can't do anything, then I'm just going to deselect the majority of those. Now, you have got this capability in MegaEdit. You can open up the menu and then go to the Details tab, as many of you will be familiar with. And you can do the same thing there. This might even give you a few additional limiting options as to what the customer can do. But this is quick access to those critical capabilities, let's say. Coming a bit further down on this list, we then just need to use these series of toggles to show what we want to allow in that particular field. So this is obviously a logo. We've got a clip art category assigned to this product, which is a folder full of logos. So I might want to say that this could be replaced by a few different logos. All I need to say is we want to enable clip art sets. And then if we want to just enable specific clip art sets, we can toggle it from this drop-down list. So if I say Infigo logo, and you'll see that as soon as I specify that, without even doing anything else, it's already appeared on my form on the right-hand side. And as the administrator, we can still utilize this. So we can still test it as we're going along, and we'll see what the user sees. So I could immediately just go to change image. It takes me directly to that selection of logos, not all of which are good. Then I can just switch between them. Nice and easy. Now let's take a look at a text field as well. So just as easy. So let's just do one or two of those. So I've just gone to page 2, and you'll see that when I've gone to page 2, there's a lot more field options available because we've got a lot more fields. But the same process applies. I find the appropriate field I want, go to its settings and enter a name, control how the user can interact with it. And then the only thing you need to do to enable a text box to appear on the right-hand side is to specify what type of field it's going to be. Now, we will tackle some of these a bit later on. All we're going to do for the moment is say a single line text. And you'll see that as soon as I put that on there, the form appears on the right-hand side, and it's already linked to the relevant field. So as soon as I start doing something else in here, you'll see it populates. You'll see by default, it gives us various different formatting options available in there as well. You might not want to allow those, but again, that is also very, very easy to control. Just go back onto the settings of that particular field, and you've got a load of toggles there controlling what kind of formatting options are available for that particular field. So if I just go straight for no formatting options, all I get is the text field. Nice and easy. So other things we can do is to actually control page elements as well. So we've looked at the Fields tab over at the top of the screen here. If I go across to the Page tab, this allows us to actually control that particular page. And these are all independent, so I can do different controls here on page 1 and page 2 and what have you. This allows you to do a few things. First of which, you can just rename the pages. So if you don't just want page 1, page 2, and want something a bit more interesting, I don't know, logo side, that will rename it down at the bottom. It will rename it in the form itself, so when you switch between pages. And then you also have the ability to apply background groups and layout groups. So these are not new concepts. They are MegaEdit concepts. It's just giving you access to those from within the form builder. So layouts, hopefully as the name suggests, you can put different layouts of controls and fields on that particular form, on the page rather, and select between them. Or background elements, colors, images, you might have created background categories. I can just enable layout selection and a background selection, and just say which ones I want available. And immediately they become available over on the right-hand side. So you'll see that we're very quickly building up a nice looking form here. It's very, very simple to configure. And quite importantly as well, they're both going on individual pages. So you won't get, they're done on a page by page basis. So your form elements that you create on one page will not be shown on the other page. They're all independent. Right. Don't worry, we'll get onto some more advanced stuff. Okay, so, and if you're building a very simple template like that, of course, you can get into a lot of different areas and a lot of different detail. But if you are just building a fairly simple template, you can do it in a matter of minutes. It's really, really simple. And again, it's all in Mega Edit. There's no need to jump between interfaces. Now, the next section is the actual script config of the Infigo form builder. So what we've seen in terms of the user interface type side of thing is that it's really easy to configure, but there's a limited set of options at the moment. So the user interface will gradually get better over time. But at the moment, to access some of the more advanced capabilities, we do need to access some of these script config. And these advanced capabilities, in a nutshell, and I'll show you them in a moment, are things like variables or pre-formatted text or pre-defined lists of text or formatting rules or vcard population, which you can do as well. So all that needs a little bit of script config. When we're actually, let's see if there's anything I've missed here. Okay, so there's a few different levels of the script config. Let me just give you a bit of a reference as to what I mean here. So if I go back to my product, where we were actually applying the script, you'll see that next to that particular script, there's a config button here. That will take us to the product level script config. So there's a few different options that you have. Well, two primarily. So one is a product level. So this allows you to configure the script on a product by product basis. It's great if everything is completely independent, if there's not things shared between products. Alternatively, you can do a global script config. So let's say you want to reuse the same variables or the same vcard properties over and over again in different products. You don't want to have to copy and paste it and tweak it all every single time you use it. So you can just put it into the global config of the script. So two ways you can access that. One is when you're on the product config, you can just click on the global config at the bottom there to go straight to it. Alternatively, it's located in Mega Edit Scripts. Then you'll see there's a global config. Now there is also another level up from that as well, which is the sort of general script config. And that's got to just by clicking this editor button. And this is what the script is at the moment. Can't promise it will look exactly the same or be accessed exactly the same upon release. But this is full of code, but also notes to try and assist with various different processes and different parts of it. And of course, as I mentioned, we'll provide additional resources as well. But a good way to think about this in terms of how these operate. So the general config sits on the bottom. This is kind of the base functionality of the form builder script and controls the sort of general behavior of the entire form builder functionality. The next level up from that is the global config of the script. And if you've got matching sections of code in both the default config and the global config, then the global config will override it. So let's say that you've specified a variable in both, but the details are slightly different in the global config. That's the one that will take priority. So you can override just certain bits of the script. And the same applies when you're going between global and product level. So if I've got loads of stuff applied in your global script, but then there's certain bits you want to just override or tweak, you can do that by putting just certain bits in the product level as well. So you can override each level. Right, so first up here, let's take a look at variables. So those of you who have used Indent before will probably be familiar with variables. It's got a range of associated settings with it as well, and they're configured using that script config. Within a product template itself, a variable name, which is then surrounded by a few predefined characters, can be input within a text field. So what it means is that this automatically generates your end user form, and I'll show you this in a moment, but it means that you can put multiple different variables within a single text field, if that's better for you. So if I try and give you some context on that. So a slightly more advanced version of the product I was just working on. And what you'll see is that I have multiple variables in the same text field there. And what this means is that we can put rich formatting on different ones if we want to allow for rich formatting. And whenever we add a variable into here, it automatically gets its own entry on the form itself. So even though they're both in the same field, I've got name and I've got job title in separate entries on my actual form itself. As you can see there. Okay, now I did mention that they have various different options available with them as well. So ways in which you configure and specify certain bits of it. So I won't go through every single one. I will be here for probably quite a long time. If I can find, this is where I switch between loads of tabs. Give me 1 second. I'm just going to find the config of that script we just made there. Okay, and I will refer back to this a few times. Now, as I said, I know it looks a lot for non-web developers. I thought the same when I first looked at it, but it is actually quite easy to utilize. So looking at a variable, for example, see if I can zoom in on that. Not prettiest, but that will do. You've got things like this section here. So we've got text variable lookup, and then everything within that section is to do with one variable. And all you're doing is specifying things like the name of the variable, what the label is going to be, so how it will appear in the actual form, what type of input it is. So is it a text field? Is it a text area? Is it a date? That kind of thing. And things like placeholder, help text, that kind of thing. So quite easy to utilize. All you're doing is putting the thing you want to populate and then what you want to populate with. And of course, we will provide the resources so you know exactly what options you have available in here for you. Oh, there's a question coming there. Would the global setting apply to the specific storefront only or platform-wide? As it works at the moment, as I am aware, it's just at a storefront level because the script as it is at the moment gets put on an individual storefront. That's one of those other questions I can take away because there's a good chance that when it's released, it might be available on the platform itself. But let's work on the assumption now that it's storefront level. Okay. Okay, so the next thing we have available in here is formatting rules. So these allow you to create reusable code specifying the way in which the contents of a variable or an entire field can be formatted. So this includes specifying things such as if you only want to allow numbers, so it physically won't let you type letters into a field. But it also allows you to specify things such as regex rules and regex formatting. And they will automatically be applied, again, to variables or to fields. And again, these are quite easy to sort of implement. So let me show you what I mean by this, first of all, on my product. So here we've got my phone number. And again, this is a very simple example, just to hopefully demonstrate. That's the wrong product. Okay, so let's try here. So you'll see I've got my phone number. As I start typing the number, there's no formatting. But as soon as we hit the required number of characters, that regex kicks in and it will automatically format to my predefined specification. Now, as many of you will be aware, this is not something which is Infigo specific. Regex is a sort of wider concept. Loads of resources on the internet to assist you with this. When I reach the required number of characters, you can see that it formats it exactly how I've specified it to be formatted. And the way this works in the actual script, again, if I can find the relevant section. So what you're doing again is you've got a section for formatting rules, and then however many formatting rules you have in there, you just copy and paste the same section and then just make a few tweaks. But all you're essentially doing is you're applying this to your relevant fields. So you're specifying a tag, which is the actual name of the formatting rule. And then if you want to utilize that formatting rule on one of your variables or in one of your fields, you're just assigning it to it. So for example, I've got it on my, well, it's a phone number. I've not specified the phone number as a variable. However, if I go to my phone number field and look in my normal script config, you'll see that I've got the name of that formatting rule as one of these field tags. Now, field tags and that kind of thing will be covered in more detail in the training material, but that just allows you to sort of specify different formatting or different areas of the config directly into a field from within the user interface. So again, it's just trying to make it a bit easier for you. But all we're doing is assigning that formatting rule to a field or to a variable, and then that's it. It utilizes it. And it means that you can use it multiple times. So you don't need to specify it individually, each place you want to use it. You just copy and paste that same tag every place you want to use it. So if you ever need to modify it, you only need to modify the one bit of the config. Okay. Right, next we have predefined text. So this allows us to use an input a range of options. So you'll have seen this again on Invent if you're familiar with Invent. And what that will eventually create for you once you input this data is a drop-down list of options for your customers to select between in their actual form itself. So two ways of actually doing the population. If it's a short list, so like the example I've got here is just of 2 addresses, then you might as well manually specify this in the actual script itself, because it's a simpler process. So that's just a case of specifying a title, which is what will appear in the form, and then the actual resulting value that will appear in the actual artwork itself. So I'll show you an example of that in a moment. The other option that we have available is the ability to populate from CSV. So unfortunately, I've not got an example of this set up at the moment, but hopefully my explanation will suffice. So let's say you've got hundreds of entries, hundreds of addresses, or the example I've got here is country codes for a telephone number. You don't want to manually create a list of all these different entries. So what you can do is upload a CSV into Infigo itself. So it's an area called global additional data, which some of you might be familiar with. And then once it's uploaded into Infigo, the Infigo form builder can then access it. So all you need to do is specify in the script that you want to pull in that data, and then it will populate it all to that drop-down list. You've also got the ability, as you can see through these 2 rows here, to utilize a dialog and a search option. And this will appear in the actual drop-down list itself. And what it means that instead of just being given a list of hundreds of potential options, let's say you've got hundreds of addresses, it gives you the option to actually search and filter through rather than just being presented with a big long list. Right, so let me show that in action very quickly. This Zoom problem is becoming an issue. So you can see here I've got my address, and I've just got my simple drop-down list, which is letting me choose between available options. And what is showing in the actual drop-down list is not the same as what's been shown on the artwork. Now, I haven't set this up correctly at the moment either, but there is the option for a custom ability. So what that means is if you want to give people the option to do their own input as well, and this is an optional thing, then you can specify custom and they can write in their own input rather than being limited to a particular list. Okay. Right. So the final part I've got here is vCard generation. So this is, as far as I'm aware, something that Invent cannot do at all at the moment. So it's got a one-up in that respect. So it has the ability to generate vCard QR codes. So for those that aren't aware, a vCard is a digital file format used to store contact information such as names, address, phone numbers, various other bits and pieces. It is commonly used for kind of exchanging contact information electronically. Business cards are a perfect use case for this. So we've seen it quite a few times recently, I think, where people want these vCard QR codes on their actual products themselves. What it means is that someone can just scan that with their phone and all the contact details go straight into their phone. So it saves a bunch of time. Now, vCards are not something, which is specific to Infigo. It's a concept that we've adopted from elsewhere. And of course, we'll provide, well, all that's done in terms of mapping your Infigo elements to a vCard relevant element is specifying like a variable or an entire field and mapping that to expected inputs from a vCard format. And we'll provide that as part of the tutorial material as to what exactly you can connect to in that vCard format. But looking at the code here, for example, and again, just a very simple example. So I've got vCard parts, and then all of the vCard mapping will be underneath. All it's asking you to do is to specify some sections which relate to your Infigo product. No, sorry, that's the bit which is the vCard section. So there's a vCard element which is a property called N, which relates to name. You're saying whether it's included in the vCard, and then underneath there you have the elements of your Infigo product, which are going to be feeding into that information. So it's a variable. You can also say static if you want static text, or you can say field if it's the contents of an entire field, and then you put in the name of that relevant element. And that's all you need to do. That will then link those two together. And the end result, and this is an example of it here on this product, this is only being populated by a few sample bits of information. So I think it's the name, I think it's the email address, and there's a constant organization in there of Infigo, so static text. And you'll see that it's very reactive. So as soon as I start modifying information on here, that QR code is updating automatically. And what it means, as soon as I scan that with my phone, and this probably will not work by displaying it to the camera, but I'll try. I automatically get that information fed into a contact card, which I can then add to my phone. Okay. Now, before I move on to the last section there, one thing I will say is, especially as I mentioned, like me, you're not a web developer, getting the exact format exactly right with all the open and close brackets and commas and stuff can be daunting at first. However, there are loads of resources on the internet to assist you with fixing it automatically for you, so you don't really have to do any work. My preferred one is just to plug it into ChatGPT. I can just say, format this JSON for me, copy and paste it, and it will add any additional commas or brackets or anything that you may have missed. And that's worked every time I've tried it so far. Another option is, if I can find the right page again, this JSON formatter and validator. So you can just copy and paste it into here, say process, and it will repair it for you. So there are tools available to assist you with this, as long as you've got the core content right. So all of the actual things that you've populated, you should be able to do that. Okay. Right. So before I go on to the last section, there's a couple of questions. So as long as you have the desired format rule in the script at any point, you can select to assign it to a field. The format rule script does not have to be set in a specific section of the script to apply to that field. As far as I'm aware, no, I think it doesn't have to be in a particular part of the script. But a good rule of thumb for that, and again, I can run that past the person who is a developer to make sure, is to actually just put it in the global level if you want it, because then it will read that first and then it will go to the product level. So if it's in the global level, it will be accessible by the product. Can this also be used with an upload CSV from a customer to generate variable QR codes by filling it? Ooh, that is a good question. That is one I will fully take over to the developer. My gut instinct is yes, but I will take that away. All right, so a couple of final things to say. We might finish a little bit early on this one, so feel free to fire any additional questions you have in, and I'll try my best. Just a couple of additional capabilities that it has. So one of them is layer support. So this previously was a script that was available within MegaEdit, but you may have had to get it specially enabled. But now it's built into the Infigo form builder. Now, what it just means is that you can specify things to be on background layers, or you can specify things to be on mask layers. Those will be immovable objects, and it means that any additional thing that's added to that particular canvas will always go between the background layers and the mask layers. I can demonstrate that. Losing my voice. I can demonstrate that with one of our products we have open in a moment. By default, I think there's 5 of each provided. So 5 background layers and 5 mask layers. But you can, within the script config, add more and more of those. So you can go up to, I want to say 100, but why you would? I wouldn't. So this one, for example. So this create, very simple create product. The layout of this has gone nuts. Okay, so you'll see that I added a couple of fields there, but I've specified these 2 things here, one as a background layer and one as a mask layer. So you'll see that when I start moving my intermediary fields around, it will sit in front of the background layer, but it will always sit behind mask layer. So that's giving us a way to control how much our customers can do with the template and where things are positioned. Okay. And then another one we've got there is force to fit. Now that's kind of what I tried to demonstrate with the upload version of the product that I showed you. It gives you the ability to actually fix a frame in a certain position relative to the bleed or to the page or to some custom specified margins that you may have created as well. So many tabs, so many tabs. Let me just load one of these up. Hopefully it's a relevant product. Okay, so you see there, this one, for example, I've got just a freely sitting frame here that I can do whatever with. As part of my config for that particular frame, I can say, so this is where you specify the masks and the background layers as well, but I could say something like fit to bleed. And that means that it will automatically snap to the bleed. That's been predefined as something else, which I'll show you in a moment. 1 second. Okay. So that will snap to the bleed automatically. You've also got, if I've predefined some margins, like this green one here, if I get rid of fit to bleed and fit to margin, we'll snap to that. And we also have the ability to add these border controls as well, which means that we can specify specific distances from each edge. So if I say 5 millimeters, which is what this is by default, but you can change it to inches in the config, that means that every side will be 5 millimeters away from whatever I've specified. So my margin in this case. And I can control those individually if I wish to do so. And they will persist even if we change the aspect ratio, change the size. So if I change my canvas, it will keep those same relationships. Okay, so one thing I just asked about actually before we came on, as I thought it might be a question that came up, which doesn't seem like it has, but is the ability to do the suppression capabilities. They're the same thing that we've got in Invent. So I wanted to make sure that it is still capable of doing the sort of variable suppression or the entire field suppression. Not got an example of how exactly to do it, but yes, it is a capability. And I'm told that it is actually one step ahead of what's currently in Invent, as in what is available in the form builder is currently being reformatted, or we're seeing how we can implement the same thing into Invent as well. So it does have that capability. And of course, there's much, much more than this. I've only been looking at this functionality for a short time, so I'm a long way from seeing everything it has available. There are more things it's capable of. There are more things that it will be capable of as development is ongoing. What I've shown you today is just the fundamentals and the sort of key things, hopefully giving you a nice overview of what it's capable of. Bear in mind as well that I have just shown you basic products. So when used in combination with other MegaEdit capabilities, or if you start putting additional styling on things, this is when you start to create some truly stunning user experiences. And remember that this is what our front-end team use for a lot of their product builds as well. And a lot of what they create is absolutely stunning. So the capabilities really do open up when you start to use this. That's all I've got, but there's a couple of questions coming in. So let's just have a quick look. So if a customer has 10 different cards they would like to make, would they be able to upload a CSV with all the variables they're asking for and have 10 pages automatically created? I think that's, unless I'm misreading it, kind of similar to the one that was said previously, which is my gut feeling is yes. I just want to go and check that with the developer, just to make sure that we can batch populate and it make QR codes and that kind of thing. But MegaEdit itself does have that batch capability. That's already built into MegaEdit, and we are just extending MegaEdit with the form builder capability. So gut instinct, yes, but I will confirm. Is the idea here to replace Invent using this tool, or is it an either-or option? To the best of my knowledge, it is an either-or option. It doesn't mean that development is going to stop on Invent, and it's not designed as a replacement. It's just a tool that we've had in-house for quite a while, So I say the front end team use it for their product builds. So we want to make it available to the wider Infigo user base. And again, the option is available for you. This may have some advantages over Invent, as we've mentioned, just by the nature of the way it's created. But the option's still there for you to use both. When you say suppression, are you referring to logic in the Invent plugin? Logic, that's a good question, whether or not logic is available. That question I will ask. By logic, I mean, I'm assuming you mean the if statements that we're creating. So if something meets, then something else happens. Again, I'm believing it will be available, but that's something we'll check. What I mean by suppression in my case is, so when we're in Invent and we specify like a group of, let's say we've got a group of fields that we create into one group, we can specify, I think it might actually be listed in Invent as spread behavior, but it's often called suppression as well. So vertical or horizontal suppression. Let's say we've got these fields in one of our products. So these ones here, for example. And what it will mean is that if I get rid of the phone number, so let's say we've got no phone number on our business card, it will automatically move up the other elements to fill the space. So that's what I mean in this case by suppression. Sorry, terminology there, that's my fault. Very good question there. So this is something I was going to mention, which you've reminded me of, so thank you. So is this something that will be compatible across both platforms? So if we create something in Invent, can we use Mega Edit and vice versa, certain parameters, etc.? So I've had a bit of a play around with this, and I think there is limited interactivity between the two. So what you can do is if you've got basically you can take a MEX template, import it into Mega Edit, and then what you would need to do is disable the Invent script and enable the form builder script. Now, as far as I'm aware with this, again, I'll take it away to double check. A lot of the more advanced things from Invent, so things if you have specified logic, if you have specified that spread behavior, that will be lost when you disable the Invent script. And you instead have to generate it within Infigo Form Builder. However, if you've got your artwork already in InDesign and you don't want to manually create it in here, then you can still supplement your process with Invent if that's what you want to do. So if you're in Invent and you've got your layout, you can apply all your resources in there as well if you want to. Take your MEX file and import it. So it will still bring over all that information, switch around the script that you're using, and then configure the rest using the Infigo Form Builder. That's how it will be done at the moment, to the best of my understanding. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay. That worked out quite nicely, just under the hour. So I want to thank you all for attending. It's very much appreciated. And I hope it has been worth it for you. I hope you like the functionality that we've shown here. If you do have any other questions, please fire them in. Again, I'll take them away and I'll answer them later on. This will be uploaded to the Infigo Academy if you want to watch it again. And I'm sure the system that we use will send you out additional emails to remind you. But yeah, thank you very much for your time. I very much appreciate it. And I'll see you at the next webinar.